So picture this. You're sitting in a car dealership, the salesman just came back with the manager's special price, and you're looking at a monthly payment of $650. And you're thinking, okay, $650 a month, I can swing that. I make decent money. That's like, what, 2 dinners out per week? I can cut back on that. So you sign the paperwork, drive off the lot feeling amazing, and 6 months later, you're looking at your bank account wondering why you're living paycheck to paycheck, even though you got a raise this year. This is going to sound harsh, but that car you just bought didn't cost you $650 a month. Not even close. According to AAA's 2024 Your Driving Costs study, the average cost to own and operate a new vehicle is about $12,182 per year. That includes your loan payment, insurance, fuel, maintenance, registration, and depreciation. So let's do the math on our $35,000 car over a typical 10-year ownership period. $12,182 per year times 10 years equals $121,820. But wait, it gets worse, because here's what most people don't realize. You're not just spending $121,820. You're spending $121,820 that could have been invested. This is called opportunity cost, and it's the silent wealth killer that nobody talks about. Let's say instead of spending that $12,182 per year on a car, you bought a reliable $8,000 used car with cash, and your total annual costs were $4,500 per year. That's a difference of $7,682 per year that you could invest. Now, if you invest $7,682 per year in a basic S&P 500 index fund, averaging a conservative 10% annual return over those same 10 years, you don't just save $76,820. You end up with $133,677. So the real cost of that $35,000 car over 10 years isn't $121,820. It's $121,820 plus the $133,677 you didn't accumulate. That's $255,497. $250,000 for a car that you bought for $35,000. This is where it gets really interesting. Now, you might be thinking, okay, Rehan, that's a big number, but that's over 10 years. It's not like I'm going to drive the same car forever. Exactly. You're not going to drive the same car forever. And that's the entire problem. The average person buys 9 to 13 cars in their lifetime, according to data from the automotive research firm IHS Markit. Let's be conservative and say you buy 10 cars from age 25 to 65. That's one car every 4 years, which is actually less than average. If each car costs you that same $255,497 in real cost plus opportunity cost over its ownership period. Wait, let me grab a calculator here. $255,497 times 10 cars equals $2,554,970. But it's actually worse than that because of compound interest. The money you didn't invest in your 20s would have had 40 years to compound. The money you didn't invest in your 50s only had 15 years. When you run the actual numbers with proper compounding, and I'm being conservative here with 10% returns, the real lifetime cost of buying new or expensive cars instead of reliable used vehicles is somewhere between $1.5 million and $2.3 million in lost wealth by retirement. Here's what most people don't realize. The difference between someone who retires with $300,000 and someone who retires with $2 million isn't usually their salary, it's their car choices. Look, I know what you're thinking right now. You're thinking I'm being dramatic. You're thinking, come on, it can't possibly be that much. So let me show you a real example. Let me tell you about 2 people I know. We'll call them Marcus and David. They both graduated college in 2010, both got jobs making $55,000 a year, both lived in the same city with similar expenses. Marcus bought a certified pre-owned Honda Civic for $12,000 cash that he'd saved up. Total annual costs including insurance, gas, maintenance, registration, about $4,200 per year. He drove that car for 8 years until 2018, sold it for $3,500, then bought another used car for $10,000. David bought a new Ford F-150 for $42,000 $1,000 with $3,000 down and financed the rest. Monthly payment $687 for 72 months, plus insurance, higher because it's financed, premium gas, and maintenance on a bigger vehicle. Total annual costs about $13,400 per year. The difference, $9,200 per year. Marcus invested that difference into a Roth IRA in low-cost index funds. Fast forward to today, 2024, they're both 36 years old. Marcus's investments from just that car decision difference is $186,439. David's $0 from this category. He's been making payments. But here's the really crazy part. If Marcus continues this pattern until he's 65, just this one decision, the car decision, that account will be worth approximately $2,847,382. David's truck, it's worth maybe $8,000 now if he's lucky, and he's probably thinking about buying another new vehicle soon because, that new car smell fades and the maintenance costs start going up after year 7. This is the stuff they don't teach you in school. Nobody sits you down and says, hey, that car you're about to buy, you're not just buying a car. You're choosing between a car and retiring 15 years earlier. Now let's talk about why this happens. Because look, if it was just about math, nobody would ever buy an expensive car. We'd all be driving $7,000 Corollas and retiring at 45. But it's not about math, it's about psychology. There's this thing called the payment mentality that car dealerships have perfected over the last 50 years. They've trained us to think in terms of monthly payments instead of total cost. Think about it. When's the last time a car salesman asked you, what total price are you looking to stay under? Never, right? It's always, what monthly payment works for your budget? Because here's what they know. If they can get you thinking in terms of monthly payments, they can sell you way more car than you can actually afford. They just extend the loan term. Can't afford $600? No problem. Let's do 84 months instead of 60. Now it's $520. Never mind that you're now paying interest for 7 years on a depreciating asset. Never mind that you'll be upside down on the loan for the first 4 years. Never mind that you'll probably want a new car in 5 years, but you'll still owe money on this one. There's actually a term for this in the auto industry. They call it payment packing. And according to a 2023 study by Edmunds, the average auto loan term is now 68.5 months. In 2009, it was 60 months. We're literally stretching out our debt longer and longer just to afford more expensive cars. And here's the really insidious part. We justify it with identity. I'm a truck guy. I need an SUV for safety. I work hard, I deserve a nice car. This car reflects my success. Look, I'm not saying any of those feelings are wrong, but what I am saying is that car companies spend billions of dollars in advertising to create those associations. They want you to believe that your car says something about who you are. Because if your identity is tied to your car, you'll pay almost anything to maintain that identity. There's a reason luxury car commercials never talk about gas mileage or reliability. They show attractive people at galas, winding mountain roads, kids in the back seat smiling. They're selling you an identity, a lifestyle, a feeling. And it works. According to Experian's Q3 2023 Automotive Finance Report, the average new car loan amount is $40,290. For used cars, it's $27,543. These are averages. That means millions of people are financing even more than this. The median household income in the US is about $74,000, so the average person is financing a car that costs more than half their annual gross income. That's insane. But let's go even deeper, because the opportunity cost isn't even the only thing people miss. There are all these hidden costs that nobody talks about when you're signing that loan paperwork. First, stress and financial flexibility. When you have a $600 car payment, that's $600 that you must earn every single month. You can't negotiate with the bank. You can't say, hey, I want to take 3 months off to travel, or I want to start a business, or I want to take a lower paying job that I'd actually enjoy. That payment is a prison. I talked to a guy recently, mid-30s, hates his job, has a business idea he's been sitting on for 3 years. You know what's stopping him? $1,247 in monthly payments between his truck and his wife's SUV. He said, I can't afford to take the risk of starting a business when I have these payments. He's literally trapped in a job he hates because of cars. Second, the upgrade cycle. This is psychological, but it has real financial consequences. When you buy a new car, you get used to that new car experience. The smell, the technology, the reliability, and after 4 or 5 years, when things start to feel dated or a few things need repair, you start thinking, you know what, maybe I should just get something new again. And the cycle continues. You're always paying for the most expensive years of a car's life, the first few years when depreciation is highest. According to Carfax, a new car loses about 20% of its value in the first year and about 10% per year for the next 4 years. So that $40,000 car, after 5 years, it's worth maybe $19,000. You just watched $21,000 evaporate, and if you financed it, you paid interest on that $21,000 that disappeared. Third, lifestyle inflation lock-in. Once you have an expensive car, your lifestyle tends to match it. You're not going to park your $65,000 BMW in a sketchy neighborhood, so you pay more for housing. You're not going to have a luxury car with cheap regular gas, so you pay for premium. You're not going to have a high-end car and then refuse to pay for premium insurance and maintenance. The car becomes an anchor that drags everything else up. It's like the gateway drug to lifestyle inflation. Now, you might be thinking, okay, Rehan, so what? I should just drive a beat-up 20-year-old Civic for my entire life? That sounds miserable. And look, I hear you. I'm not saying you need to drive a complete piece of junk. I'm saying you need to be honest about what you're trading. Here's my rule. If you want to buy an expensive car, that's fine, but you need to have the wealth to back it up. A common rule among financial advisors is that you shouldn't spend more than 10% of your gross annual income on a vehicle purchase, and your total monthly transportation costs, payment, insurance, gas, and maintenance shouldn't exceed 15 to 20% of your gross monthly income. So if you make $100,000 a year, you should be looking at cars around $10,000, and your total monthly transportation costs should be under $1,250 to $1,667. But here's the thing most people miss. That's a maximum, not a target. Just because you can afford it doesn't mean you should buy it. The question you should ask isn't, can I afford this? The question should be, is this the best use of this money for my life goals? If you have $500,000 in invested assets, no debt, and you're on track to retire when you want to, and you really love cars and it brings you genuine joy, sure, buy the nice car. At that point, it's a deliberate luxury purchase that you can afford. But if you have $15,000 in savings, $30,000 in student loans, no retirement account, and you're buying a $40,000 car because you deserve it, you're lying to yourself. You're trading your future for a temporary feeling. So what should you actually do? Let me give you the framework that I use and recommend. Step 1. Buy used, 3 to 5 years old, with cash or minimal financing. The sweet spot for used cars is typically 3 to 5 years old. The massive first-year depreciation has already happened, but the car is still modern, reliable, and has plenty of life left. And by the way, cars in 2020 aren't that different from cars in 2024 for most people's needs. Target brands known for reliability: Honda, Toyota, Mazda, Subaru. Look at models like the Honda Civic, Accord, Toyota Camry, Corolla, RAV4, Mazda 3, CX-5. Step 2. Keep it for 10 to 15 years. This is where the real savings happen. The longer you keep a paid-off car, the more you benefit. Yes, maintenance costs go up after year 10, but they're still way less than a car payment. Let's say you buy a 4-year-old Toyota Camry for $18,000. You drive it for 12 years. Your average annual costs, including maintenance, insurance, and gas, might be $5,500 per year. Total cost over 12 years is $66,000, and you can probably sell it for $2,000 to $3,000 at the end. Compare that to buying 2 new cars over the same 12 years at $35,000 each, and your total cost is probably around $145,000. The difference? $79,000 that you invested instead. Step 3. Invest the difference religiously. This is the part where it all comes together. Whatever the difference is between what you're spending on transportation and what the average person spends, invest it automatically. Set up an automatic transfer of $300, $500, $700 a month, whatever your number is, into a Roth IRA or a taxable brokerage account in a low-cost index fund. Don't think about it. Don't touch it. Let compound interest do its thing. Step 4. delay gratification, and stack wins. Look, I know the first few years are the hardest. You're driving a used car while your friends are posting their new car purchases on Instagram. But here's what they're not posting: their debt, their stress, their inability to quit a job they hate. You're playing the long game. You're playing the long game, and in 10 years, 20 years, when you have real wealth and real options, you'll be so glad you made this choice. Here's what this all comes down to. Every financial decision is a trade-off between present comfort and future freedom. When you buy an expensive car, you're trading future freedom for present status. You're trading the ability to retire early for the feeling of driving something nice today. You're trading flexibility for a payment.
And look, maybe that's worth it to you. Maybe you genuinely love cars and it brings you so much joy that it's worth the trade-off. I'm not here to judge anyone's values. But what I see all the time is people who make this trade unconsciously. They never actually sit down and think, am I willing to work 5 extra years before retirement to drive this car? They just think, ooh, this is nice. Can I afford the payment? Yes, okay, sold. And then they wonder why they feel stuck in their 40s and 50s. They wonder why they can't seem to get ahead. They wonder why they're living paycheck to paycheck despite making good money. The car is just one piece of this puzzle, but it's a big piece. According to the Federal Reserve's 2023 Survey of Consumer Finances, the median retirement account balance for people aged 55 to 64 is $120,000. That's not a typo, $120,000. That's terrifying. Meanwhile, those same people probably spent multiple hundreds of thousands on cars throughout their lifetime, plus the opportunity cost of not investing that money. So here's my challenge to you. Before you buy your next car, do the math, real math. Don't just think about the payment. Calculate the total cost over the ownership period. Calculate what that money could become if invested. Calculate what you're really trading. And then ask yourself, is this car worth working X extra years before I can retire? Is it worth having X less wealth when I'm 65? Is it worth the stress of the payment? If you honest to God answer yes to those questions, then fine, buy the car. At least you're making an informed decision. But I'm willing to bet that for most of you, if you actually do this exercise, you'll realize that the car you think you need is really just something you want, and the trade-off isn't worth it. Remember, rich people think in decades, poor people think in months. The difference between a $500 payment and a $0 payment seems small month to month, but over a lifetime, it's the difference between financial freedom and financial stress. Your future self is watching the decisions you make today. Make them count. If you found this helpful, smash that subscribe button, give this video a thumbs up, and drop a comment letting me know what kind of car you drive and whether this video changed how you think about it. I read every comment. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.